Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 391. Today we're going to talk about Lanterns, the Harvest Festival, and this is a recent Mensa Select winner. What this is a tile laying game that plays 2 to 4 players. What you're going to do on your turn, you'll have a hand of 3 tiles. You play a tile out to this sort of central board with these little lamps on them, and then that's going to send out cards to all the players, including yourself. And you're trying to collect different sort of formations, or kind of like poker hands, but not really, sets of cards, and then turn those in for points on your turn. So it's very quick, plays about half an hour or so. Let's jump into how it works. So here we can see all of the components that we get in the game. Now there's always going to be this starting tile that goes out on the board. You can see it's got the little boat on there. And then how this is oriented is going to be very important. So let's say we're playing a 4-player game, and then we're sitting on this side of the tile as it is on the table there. So you can see we're going to actually get a red card into our supply to start with. And then whoever was sitting over on this side over here would get a blue card, and so on. Now whoever has the red side facing them is going to get the start player marker, and this is just a reminder so that everybody gets an equal number of turns and so on. Then everybody's going to draw 3 tiles off of this deck. Now the number of tiles and the number of cards and the number of scoring tiles is going to change based on the number of players. But your turn is going to be very simple. So the only thing you ever have to do on your turn is play a tile. There's a couple other things you can do, but on your first turn, the only thing that you can do is play a tile. So let's take a look at that. So let's say this is the tile that we want to play. We'll go ahead and play it against the existing tile like so. Now the one thing that you're going to look for is, did you match any matching colors? You don't have to match. We could have played it like this if we wanted, but you pretty much always want to. Now if you've matched any colors, and even let's say these 2 tiles were here before it was our turn, let's say it was like this, and then we played this tile here, and then in this case we would match the red and the black. Any of the colors that you match, you're going to get a matching card for anything that you match there. So that's always good. Now you're trying to collect cards again to score points, which I'll show you in a second. Now after you've done that and checked for any matches, then you're going to look at your orientation again to where you're sitting. So here, we're sitting on this edge here, so we would get a green card and add it into our supply. And then everybody else actually is going to get other colors. So the player to the left will get blue, and then the player across from us will get red, and then black. Now if you're playing a 2-player game, maybe sitting across from each other, then these are sort of dead sides. So you can play this tile knowing that your opponent across the table won't be getting the blue and the black, which is important. Now there's one other thing to keep in mind is when you play a tile, some of them will have just this little pictograph on there, and you go ahead and let's say we played this tile here. So in this case, what will we get? Well, we get a blue because we matched the blue, and then we get a black because it was facing us. Now because we have done a match, we've matched a color on a tile that has a picture, we're going to grab one of these tokens here. There's a handful of these wooden tokens there off the side of the board. So for each tile that you have a match with that has a picture on it, you're going to get one of these, and these are helpful for trading in cards that you don't necessarily want to score points. So that's what you do on your turn. You're going to go through, you're going to play through the whole deck and then play through everybody's hand. So once the deck runs out, you're still going to play through, and then you're going to get 1 extra turn when you don't have a tile. Now we talked about the thing that you have to do on your turn, which is play a tile. But 2 optional things that you can do on your turn is A, trade in a card. So let's say you've collected different amounts of cards here, and you've got this blue one that you don't really want for different reasons, and you want to trade that in and get a black. Well, you can trade in 2 of those tokens that you would have gotten, plus a card that you don't want, to go ahead and take a card that you do want. So you can do that once at the start of your turn. After you've done a trade, optionally, then you can try to grab one of these score tiles. And you can see there's 3 different types, and as you start to grab them, they're going to go down in value, so you want to try to get at these early. And there's 3 ways to grab these. So you can see on this 10-pointer here, there are 7 different colors, and those represent the 7 different colors of the cards that are in the game. So if you take and trade in one of each card, you can grab a tile off the top of that deck. You can also trade in 3 pairs. So you can see there's 3 like color sort of pairs there. So if you trade in 3 pairs of cards, then you can get the 9 or whatever's on the top of that deck. And then here you've got the 4 of a kind. And so if you trade in 4 of a kind of the different color cards, then you can get that. So on your turn, you can do a trade, and then you can grab a scoring tile, and then of course you have to play a tile to the center of the board, and that is it. That's the entire game. At the end of the game, you're going to get up all the points of all the scoring tiles, and then any leftover of these trade tokens is going to act as a tiebreaker, followed by whoever has the most leftover cards. And that's the game. Okay, so that's Lanterns, and what do I think of Lanterns? Well, I quite enjoy it, actually. It's really, really light. It's almost too light for me, but there's enough kind of strategy with it that it makes it interesting. Now, the cool thing about it is you have to sort of figure out and be careful about which tiles you put down, because you're going to be giving cards to other players, and you need to look at what cards they've been collecting and not give them an easy 4 of a kind or 1 of every card kind of thing, because they're going to be able to score that the first thing they do on their next turn. Now, one thing that's happening in the game is after everybody's played the tile, remember I said everybody gets an extra turn, well then you have an extra turn of being able to trade in your tokens once and then also score. So you can set yourself up to score after sort of your last turn in this kind of last sort of half turn. So that's very nice. It would be kind of weird if they didn't have that. And it's feasible that you could get a card somehow, you know, on the last turn and then be able to score, but people would have to really be not paying attention, even though I've seen it happen. So the thing is the player count. Now with 2 players, it's much easier to sort of deny and all that kind of stuff. With 4, it's a little bit more chaotic because you can't really keep track of everybody. You're like, well, I give Billy this card or Frankie this card. So it's a little bit harder to gauge, but I still do like it with 4. That's probably my favorite with 2 and 3, but I'll still play it with 4. And it really kind of reminds me of Tsuro, which is a game we played probably more than we really should have. I actually like Tsuro of the Seas better because it's more chaotic, and I think, you know, for a half an hour little game, it's just a pure filler, not really thinking too much. That works fine. I like the extra chaos of the Seas. It just makes it more fun because I'm not really invested when I play. Now with this, it kind of reminds me of it because you're building these kind of network things, and your tile placements have implications for the other players. In Tsuro, you're trying to run them off the board or run them into each other. In this, it's similar, kind of like in reverse almost, where you're playing the tile and then, you know, you're giving them points essentially. But this, to me, has a little bit more strategy with that, because you can kind of try to set up to, you know, play one tile then play another. But again, with 4 players, that kind of goes out the window. It's a little bit easier to do that with 2 and 3 players. So yeah, you try to collect these even tokens to trade in, and so you kind of set yourself up. It's really, and the thing is, I don't want to call it brainless, because it's not. You have to put some thought into it. You can't just play it haphazardly. There's just enough thought to me that it's kind of like that perfect sort of gateway game where you can play it with, you know, new gamers or people that aren't really into gaming, and it's just chewy enough that you can, you know, play with it a little bit and you can be social with it. So anyway, that's Lanterns. Definitely take a look at it if that makes sense for you. So thanks.